3 Golden Eagles for War Thunder. Link in the description. Hello you sexy beasts, welcome back to War Thunder. Two new things today. We have a webcam and we have some new render settings, so stay tuned to the end of the video because I'm actually going to ask you guys some stuff. But this is the Wyvern, a tier 4 premium British aircraft. Now, it isn't exactly a fighter, it isn't exactly an attacker, it is somewhere in between. This thing is the first turboprop that we have in the game. Now, what exactly is a turboprop? Pretty much, it's just a regular engine with a turbo on the back. This thing is indeed boosted by a turbo. Now the way a turbo works is it uses the exhaust fumes from the engine to charge a turbocharger, which compresses more air into the engine, which results in a power boost. That is why the exhaust of this aircraft are in the back behind the cockpit, behind the pilot, because that's where the gases go out after powering the turbo. Now, the Wyvern is quite an interesting aircraft. First of all, it is a very, very good sound. The sound we are listening to right now is not a jet engine. This is actually a piston aircraft, but again, it is the turbocharger that makes that whining sound. And it is quite unique in this regard because it is the only prop aircraft that has this kind of sound. It sounds extremely sexy, and everyone can hear it. This aircraft has a very, very, very specific sound signature that you can hear from, well, miles away, so to speak. If you are fighting in the clouds and you hear this sound, you know what it is. Now, the Wyvern is equipped with 4 20mm cannons and has a wide selection of armament as well, of ordnance, that is. The 20mm cannons are for Mark V Hispano cannons, with an absolutely insane amount of ammo. This thing is over 1,200 rounds of 20mm cannon ammo. That's over 400 per gun. This is very, very, very good. Actually 400, no, 300. Sorry about that. Still, 300 rounds per gun, this is enough to hold you the entire game. You can indeed carry games in the Wyvern. If flown right, we are going to go into the flying characteristics of this aircraft later on in the gameplay. Now, the first match we are facing here today is the preparation for landing on Hokkaido. We are facing off against the Americans and we are filling the ground attacker role. Now, the Wyvern can carry up to 3 1,000-pounder bombs for a total of 3,000 pounds, which is indeed enough to take out a base, which is what I'm going to do in this particular gameplay, or at least what I try to do. You can also carry up to 16 rockets, either RP-3s or AP rockets. Now, the AP rockets in theory should be better against tanks, but I haven't had a single kill with them just yet. Honestly, the RP-3 rockets are just much more versatile, so you should just completely ignore the AP rockets. They don't really do anything that I know of. If you guys know what the AP rockets are for, do let me know in the comment section down below, because honestly, I've hit pillboxes directly and I haven't done any damage, so I'm not exactly sure what those things are used for. The RP-3s, however, are very, very nice. Now, with 16 rockets, you get a total of 8 discharges. Now, you need about 6 rockets for destroyers. For example, destroyers takes about 6 rockets. Heavy pillboxes take about 3 rockets, but since you have to fire off 2 at the same time, unless you hit the both at the same time, you still have to squeeze the trigger 3 times. And as such, having 16 rockets is very good for taking out multiple targets, especially also in ground mode in combined RB ground forces. This thing can wreak some havoc. It is quite comparable to the AD2 in this regard in having a lot of payload. However, the AD2 personally is a bit of my favorite, simply because it can carry both rockets and a lot of bombs. This thing can either carry just the bombs or the rockets. Now, you do have access to a torpedo in this aircraft. You can carry rockets and torpedoes at the same time, or as well a single torpedo. However, it is strongly advised to not carry that torpedo. Now, Wattzy Torpedo is of course a guaranteed one-shot kill against destroyers. You are much better off just carrying bombs or rockets, because the torpedo needs an extremely low velocity to be fired off. As we take out the Foucault 190A. Now, have you guys noticed that lately tail controls get shut out very, very easily? This has killed me quite a lot of times, and well, I guess it's somehow better than it was before. It definitely seems like either I am getting used now to the new damage models, or they've reverted it somewhat, because you can now actually kill stuff again. Bombers are still a bit iffy, but we're going to deal with bombers later on in this video. Now back to the torpedo. Honestly, the torpedo is completely useless. You have to go so incredibly slow that you are almost stalling out your plane before you can even launch that torpedo. And by the time you're doing that, you are very close to the enemy destroyer. Any aircraft that's going to pounce on you is going to have a massive advantage, because you're going very low and very slow. So overall, torpedoes are just not a great idea in this aircraft. But again, rockets are where it is at, or bombs if you want to take out a base very, very quickly. Now, the Wyvern is a very, very fast aircraft. Due to the massive power that the turboprop engine puts out, the counter-rotating 4-blade propellers. This thing has quite a lot of propeller blades. This thing has an insane acceleration at low altitude. It's probably one of the best accelerating aircraft in the game. Not only that, it also has a very, very decent top speed, which it can maintain very, very well as well. At low altitude you can go well over 500 to 600 km per hour. Even with the bombs loaded, you can go 550 km per hour at low altitude in a straight line, which is very, very, very good. However, this thing has a major problem. First of all, it is very heavy. Being a naval aircraft and being so large and having the turboprop mounted, as well as the 420mm cannons, this thing is very heavy and as such is not designed to be a turn fighter. Not only that, the elevators also seem to hemorrhage speed whenever you hit those elevators. And in this situation here, I did a bad. The Wyvern is supposed to be played like a jet. Honestly, this is probably the most jet-like prop that you get in the game. You have to stay at speed, you have to keep your energy, and you have to boom and zoom. That is where the Wyvern shines. However, it is not very good at high altitude fights, and we're going to get to that later on in this particular gameplay. Actually, this is a kind of an example of how you can employ the Wyvern correctly and how to absolutely not employ the Wyvern. I actually managed to do a very, very grave error in this game. Now, we are facing off against the Russians and, well, Soviets I should say. And the Soviets are probably your biggest threat in the Wyvern. Now, whilst the thing has very good top speed, there are fighters that are faster than it. The engine is very strong and as such gives you a very good acceleration and climb rate. Especially what I'm doing now is pretty much what I do with all of my jets, which I don't really have on this account, but I used to do with the other account when I play jets, which is getting up to speed first. I usually get around 500 km per hour with the Wyvern and then go into a shallow climb. About a 10-degree climb is enough to get a massive climb rate and massive energy advantage. Now, the climb rate of the Wyvern is very good. However, the engine performance drops off very rapidly at altitude. The higher you go, the worse your engine is going to perform, and at a certain point you just don't have enough engine power to be competitive anymore. Couple that with the Wyvern not being very mobile at all, not being very agile, and the massive loss of energy whenever you try to turn, this thing is definitely not a high altitude dogfighter. Now, some altitude of course is always useful, especially since the top speed is good, but there are fighters that are faster than it. Having someone dive on you generally is a death sentence, because you can't really evade them, and they can keep up with you long enough to take you down. Especially if they hit your engine. I've noticed that the engine of this thing is very fragile, and a single shot can seize it up very quickly. That's actually something that has killed me in a earlier game, which is not featured in this video, but I was about 5 kilometers away from the airfield, from my own airfield, got one shot into the engine which turned it yellow, and by the time that I got back to the airfield it was black and I managed to crash before the runway and as such could not repair. So you have to watch out for that. Whenever your engine is damaged, just evacuate to area. This aircraft flies a bit like a Hunter in that regard, and it's actually a very good parallel that I can take here. It is very, actually surprisingly, very similar to the Hunter in its playstyle. It is an aircraft that is not very dogfighty, it's not very maneuverable. The roll rate is okay, the turn time, the turn radius is also actually decent enough when you are at speed. This thing can turn very well when at speed. However, you bleed off speed like crazy when you do that, and it is not recommended to enter dogfights of any kind. If the enemy is turning away from you, just go straight ahead, keep your energy, go into a shallow climb and re-engage that way, which is also the same thing that you do with the Hunter. This thing has some very good acceleration at low speed, which is true. So when other fighters dive on you, you can actually try to energy trap them and use those air brakes as you do have on this aircraft. Energy trap them, make them have the same speed as you, and then try to open up your throttle and get away. However, that is of course not a guaranteed way to survive in the Wyvern, since, well, the tail is rather massive and a single shot can take out your tail controls, which will kill you. Now at this point we were facing off, well, we were not really facing off against anything. I did see something in the clouds, but these clouds are going to be our nemesis. Now, they're going to work somewhat for us and against us. As I said before, the Wyvern is not a high altitude fighter. Honestly, I would suggest going up to a maximum of 3 kilometers in this thing. It is just not a very good high altitude fighter. But some altitude is always useful to turn into speed when you need it. This thing can go up to 800 kilometers per hour without breaking its wings, which is very nice. Now, the clouds that we have currently on the map are about 2 kilometers high. And they can go up to 7 kilometers. And they are very dense, which makes spotting bombers rather impossible. Of course, this bomber, which was flying down below, just got pilot sniped and very easily dispatched. But hunting bombers is kind of a mixed bag with this thing. When the bombers are at low altitude, of course, you have no problem. This thing can go very fast. It can boom and zoom very effectively, and as such is a very valuable asset to your team to take out bombers. Coupled up with the 4 20mm cannons, which have access to air target belts, and of course the massive amounts of armor. As long as you know what you're doing and as long as you evade the enemy fire from the gunner of the enemy bomber, you should have no problem taking out bombers. Of course, you should still pay attention to B-17s because those tend to fly high and you do not want to engage a bomber at high altitude. Trust me, I've had bad experiences with it. Now, after taking out that bomber, we are kind of just searching for targets at low altitude. There is not really a point to try to climb above the clouds. The clouds are very dense and we just wouldn't be able to see anything. And as such, I tried to scout the enemy aircraft that are reliably going to be low, that are expected to be low, and well, we are searching pretty much for bombers, IL-10s, Tu-2s. Yours are more of a high altitude bomber kind, but they occasionally go down as well, and of course some enemy fighters that are distracted by our team. And that's actually one of the best ways to employ the Wyvern. Again, much like the Hunter, with the Wyvern being such a fast aircraft with good armaments, which is able to just pop out of nowhere, this thing is very well employed in supporting teammates that are in dogfights. Of course, when the enemy is aware of you, it is much harder to take them down, especially since you lose so much energy in any kind of turn, and as such, you should not be really engaging in turns whatsoever. However, when the enemy is focusing on one of your teammates and is just pretty much tunnel visioning, these 4 20mm cannons can do very quick work of them, which is how I get most of my kills in this aircraft. It really is more of a support aircraft and an all-rounder that can do pretty much anything. It is a jack of all trades. Usually what I do at the start of matches, of course, just carry more ordnance. On this particular map I didn't, because the bases were just too far away and it just wasn't really worth it. So I just engaged into fighter mode and intercepted the enemy bombers. But in other maps where you have bases, where you have not too long lines, where you can reliably go to the enemy bases without being intercepted, that's especially true against the Germans, since they don't really want to sacrifice their altitude in order to go after you. This thing can just, for the first 5 minutes of the game, act as an attacker, act as a bomber even, with those 3 1000 pounder bombs. Just go, destroy a base, earn 3 10,000 silver lions, and then engage into fighter mode. Going into shallow climb, about 10 degrees is pretty much ideal, and get up to 3 kilometers altitude and engage aircraft after that. Now here is where we start doing the first big errors. Now, we did pull off one of the enemy fighters that was chasing after our friendly players over there, but we still have Cybero in the LA9 going after the Lancaster. Now the Sea Fury is going after him as well, but they are both running towards our side now. Now Cybero is mounting a forehead attack here. He does evade, and I do not manage to get my guns on target. The LA9 has a very good roll rate, which is something that the Wyvern just does not have. And here is where I do my biggest error. Look at my speed. Look at my speed. And in one turn, I went from 500 kilometers per hour down to 300. And that is the big problem with the Wyvern. This thing just hemorrhages speed when you engage in any kind of turn. And even so, with combat flaps enabled at this speed, you just do not have the turning radius to go inside of an LA9. So finally I decide to get the hell out of here before those guys catch me. The LA9 is a very dangerous opponent, and they are faster than you at low altitude. So you have to be very aware of that. Thankfully my teammates do save my ass there. Having 2 teammates to distract those 2 LA9s means that I was able to get away safely without being catched by King Avol in that LA9. Now of course, as that LA9 is turning away, it is time for me to return. Now, one trick with the Wyvern is to do the same tricks that you do with a jet. Now, since the elevator just hemorrhages energy so badly, it is very important to use very slight and smooth mouse movements with this thing. That's exactly what I was doing there. The smoother you are with your mouse, the gentler you are, the more energy you are going to keep. And you can see it in your indicated airspeed so that you get a feel for this. If you pull it a little bit too hard, you're just going to lose 50 kilometers per hour. Just like that, like snap, it's gone. This thing loses energy very quickly when you use that elevator. And as such, it is very important that you make a minimal use of it. Whenever you can, especially when you are booming and zooming, do not use the WASD keys, but rather use the mouse and be very smooth with your movement. That is the trick to keeping your energy in the Wyvern. That is the trick to keeping fast and to have success and not being shot down. Now at this point, after the dogfight, there's not much going on. Most of our team is at low altitude, below the cloud cover. The clouds, of course, are still very thick. They are ranging from 2 to 7 kilometers altitude and are so thick that you can't really see anything within, well, over than 600 meters. So going into the clouds is a very stupid idea. However, I did see a black spot over the docks, over the port side in that bay. And indeed, the battle chat has just confirmed that there is a Tu-2S currently attacking our armored cars. Now we still have plenty of fuel left, we still have plenty of ammunition left. Being a carrier-borne aircraft, this thing of course has a minimum fuel load of 45 minutes, which should be able to hold you the entire match as long as you don't have a fuel leak. So fuel is not really an issue. And with all those cannon rounds, this thing is very durable. You can really just hold out the entire match without landing unless you take damage. Now the TU2 is trying to get away, but of course a TU2 is never going to get away from a Wyvern. Quick check on the leaderboard, it seems like there are about 3 to 4 aircraft still alive. Now, we know for a fact that, of course, there's a TU2 in front of us, and there is another TU2 who is currently attacking our airfield. Now, that last TU2 is going to be an issue later on. First of course, we have to take care of this one. Quick pass, set the engine on fire, and make my way immediately out of there. The TU2 has 20mm cannons in the nose, so whatever you do not want to get caught in the line of sight of that thing. So I open up my throttle, get away from there, go into shallow climb, and he eventually crashes due to the damage he took from that fire. Now at this point there are only 2 enemy aircraft left. We have a LA-7 or LA-9, which we currently do not know the position of, and another TU2 which has attacked our airfield. So we know the general location, he must be somewhere over there in the clouds. Now we have a couple of options here. The enemy only has 2 bases left which are at very, very low health. So I have a couple of options here. Either I can go for the airfield and see if that LA-9 is over there. I can go back to base and rearm, get some bombs, and take out those last 2 bases so that the B-17 that is still alive on our team can then go for the airfield. Or I can chase after the last bomber, which is probably at high altitude, in very thick clouds, which is pretty much not the hunting ground of the Wyvern. Now of course, being over here doesn't hurt to check the enemy airfield, so that is exactly what I do. Now from here it seems that the enemy airfield is quite empty, but since we've been around 20 minutes into the match, actually no, that's about 15 minutes I think, yes, about 15 to 20 minutes into the match, it is likely that the enemy fighter is running low on fuel, and that's exactly what is happening. The LA-9 is going back to the airfield, but, well, he isn't going to have much luck. There's a Sea of Fury behind him and a Tempest in front of him. Now, actually a Sea Fire, excuse me. And now the Tempest does something stupid here, to be honest. He just, yeah, he got the kill, okay, a fair point, he did get the kill, but he, what's it called, he committed way too much. You never want to commit to a head-on. The way you head-on in any aircraft really, especially against something that's, that has nose-mounted cannons like the LA-9, is to fire at around 1.5 kilometers. By the way, if you didn't know, cannon shells and MG bullets, they despawn after traveling about 1.5 kilometers. That's a very important number. That means that you can fire at aircraft up to 1.5 kilometers away. Now, it depends a bit on the situation as well. If the enemy aircraft is flying towards you, you can fire from about 2 kilometers away, because by the time those shells and bullets reach that 1.5 kilometer threshold, the aircraft is going to have moved closer. If the aircraft is moving away from you, or even traveling at the same speed as you, of course that range is going to be reduced, since your bullets are going to have to travel a little bit further until hitting the aircraft. So aircraft that are 1.5 kilometers away in front of you and flying either away of you or at the same speed as you are generally not really easy to hit. However, if you are closing in on them, if they are coming towards you, you can fire from quite far away, surprisingly far away actually. And since the Wyvern has 4 20mm cannons, only a couple of hits should do to set the engine on fire, get the pilot. It is always a good idea to go for 2 kilometer snipes in the head-ons. Now, since the cannons are mounted under the wings, of course you have to watch out for your gun convergence. In my case, I have my guns converged at 500 meters, which means that I have somewhat accurate fire up to 1 kilometer away, 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers away. You can of course increase the distance, but that is going to reduce your effectiveness at close range. I found that with wing-mounted armament, 400 to 500 to maximum 600 meters seems to be the sweet spot for gun convergence. In my personal case, I do not use vertical targeting, simply because I like to go for ground targets as well, and that generally messes me up. And especially in the Wyvern, since this thing does have the capabilities to go after ground targets, it's generally a good idea to turn off vertical targeting. Now a couple of minutes later into the match, this is about 5 minutes later actually, I did do a cut there, we have decided to go up and chase that bomber. Now as you can see, the Wyvern does not perform very well at altitude, and these clouds are extremely thick. We are 5 kilometers altitude, we still couldn't see the guy. So I decided, I do still have a blind hunt order, don't I? Yes, we did. So we got the position of that year 2. Now, that guy is kind of an asshole and kind of not. He climbed into space. He's at 7 kilometers altitude on a map that has extremely thick clouds. This guy had full intentions of staying at altitude until the match ends. At the same time, however, he did give his position away with using the tricolored smoke. Now, whether that was intentional or not is of course up to debate, but it did help me in getting his range when the blind hunt order finally got out. Now, a couple shots into the wingtip, set his alter fuel tank on fire, but miraculously he put it out immediately. Now he did lose his tail control, according to the crit indication. Now you can never trust it too much. Sometimes it does indicate that the tail control was shot down, but the aircraft can of course still fly, and especially at this altitude. I mean, 6 kilometers altitude, by the time this guy hits the ground, the kill is not going to be mine. And I want to end this match as quickly as possible, so I engage him once again. Now, in this entire engagement he did not use his gunners. It could be that his gunners were simply taken down, they were unconscious by the pass from my friendly aircraft earlier on, or it could simply be that, well, they couldn't really see me through the clouds either, and as such couldn't engage until I was very close. But indeed, I did not take a single hit from the enemy gunners. And as you can see, the Year 2 is still an aircraft that takes a lot of damage. Even with these 420mm cannons, it is a challenge to take this thing down. But finally, I clip off the left wingtip, which I did set on fire earlier. It had a structural weakness, and as such, it finally went down. And that is pretty much the end of the match. And that is game. We didn't quite make the first place. One of our teammates did get an assist, which bumped his score just slightly higher to get above us, but we did get a very good score. Now, this is with a premium account and a 10% research point booster, and we got 82,000 silver lions and 14,000 research points towards our Meteor Mark III. I'm currently unlocking that aircraft, and I'm hoping to do a video on it since it was now down tiered to 7.0. So, recapping the Wyvern, what can we really say about it? First of all, is it worth it? Because it is a premium aircraft. And I gotta say, it is. Honestly, this is one of the best grinding machines in the British tech tree. Now, of course, if you want to go for fighters only, the premium Spitfire is probably a better idea. But flown correctly, the Wyvern can be very effective and very versatile. I can imagine this thing being very effective in combined RB battles, especially since you can use this as a hybrid between a fighter and a ground attacker. It is somewhat like a mixture between the AD2 and the Hunter, having very high speed but very decent armament. So overall, this aircraft is just very good, and honestly worth it if you can afford it. This thing will grind you through your entire tech tree, which is what I'm using this thing for right now. And of course, it is a absolutely beautiful, stunning aircraft with just an amazing engine sound. And that has been the Wyvern. Very fast aircraft, very good acceleration, very good climb rate, very good armament. Suffers from heavy energy loss during turns. It is definitely not a turn fighter, but flown correctly it can carry games and is going to consistently give you good results. Now guys, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. Tell me in the comment section down below two things. First of all, do you like the webcam? I'm currently figuring out some stuff, just doing some preparations for the big video marathon that I'm going to do over the summer, and I want to increase my quality somewhat. So, do you like the webcam? Do you not like my face? I mean, I do have a huge nose. So, do you want more webcams in your reviews, in your gameplays? Do you want to have less webcams? Tell me in the comment section below. And also tell me how the video quality is, because I'm using new render settings which are reducing my render and upload times by pretty much half. So these videos should be much easier to upload and render now. Now, as always, guys, tell me what you think about the Wyvern. Leave a like if you did enjoy this video and if you found it helpful, and subscribe if you are new around here. In the description of each video you can find some cookies. My name is BMarcusBoom, and as always, thanks for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find a slightly better frame